All right, welcome guys to the NBA live stream. We got two games to talk about today for Wednesday's playoff slate. Before we get into the live stream, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name's DK. So what we're going to do here is take a look at the injury news. Really what we're waiting on right now is just Embiid, but I fully expect him to play. Although, again, the last game he did look the most injured, I will say, so far this series. We'll take a look at the Vegas odds really quick. I'm going to go team by team, talk about the players I like, leave some room for questions at the end. So, again, with news, Trae Young's probable, Embiid's questionable, but fully expect Joel Embiid to play. We'll get that news somewhat soon. The Hawks 76ers is the first game. It's a 224.5 over under. The 76ers are 6-point favorites. And Nuts and Bucks at 220 over under. The Bucks are 5.5-point favorites. Okay, so yeah, so I was that was pretty funny. I was hanging out in the Osmo chat for a little bit. One person first said how Paul George is like a bad play today, and someone said Paul George is scoring dependent. Like, I was just like, I mean, yeah, everyone was ripping. I mean, what are you even talking about? Like, I told him, I was like, if I was building 150 lineups, I would have Paul George in every single lineup. The only way he fails is an injury or the Clippers just get absolutely destroyed. Yeah, that made no sense. That made no sense at all. And then the Paul George score independent, you're just like, Yeah, exactly. You're like, alrighty then. All right, so let's talk about the first game here, Atlanta and Philadelphia. Trae Young, 9.9K, is definitely someone we can consider spending up for in the slate because he's going to play about 40 minutes. He's going to shoot the ball a ton. He had 18 assists last game. Now, that's kind of an outlier performance for sure, but yeah, I still think Trae Young is firmly in play here. I will say he might rank slightly behind some of the other stars in the slate for me, but I do think he'll probably come in at the lowest ownership of like the top guys. So still have interest in Trae Young. The price did come up, but still like him as a contrarian play. Embiid fade. Yeah, if you're fading Embiid, then you probably get to a guy like Trae Young, right? Because the other stars in the slate are Mitchell and Paul George. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Definitely still an edge. All right, so yeah, Trae Young, again, I think he's a good play. I think he's a little bit more of a contrarian play, but definitely still someone we're considering on a two-game slate. I still don't have a ton of interest in Capella at 6'7". One, it's just because the usage in the playoffs has gone way down. Number two, I don't like targeting centers against Joel Embiid. You got the foul trouble risk. And number three, it's just, again, I don't think prioritizing Capella on this slate really gives you a big edge to the field. You're probably going to need one of those games where he has like 4 or 5 blocks for Capella to really have a good game. So more of just a contrarian play for me. I'm not really considering him. A couple guys I'm considering, I think they're both pretty safe, are Bogdanovich and John Collins. Bogdanovich, because the minutes, should play about 40 minutes. He's getting a ton of shot attempts up. Again, he hasn't been shooting the best, but if he has a decent shooting game, we can see 40 fantasy points from Bogdan. So I think he's a pretty safe play. Also, John Collins, I don't love the price point, but he should get about 35 minutes, 35, 34, 35, 33, 37 minutes the last 5 games. For a guy at this price point who's a good rebounder, yeah, I think a decent option. And power forward is definitely a weaker position. So Bogdan and Collins, I think, are both pretty safe plays here for the Hawks. As far as Herder versus Gallinari goes, I'll probably rank these guys behind the Clippers value, and it's just because Kawhi Leonard is out, and obviously you want a good amount of Clippers exposure. I think everyone kind of knows that. So Herder, Gallinari probably rank behind guys, again, like Morris, Batum, right? Would rather have those guys over Herder and Gallinari. I will say with Herder versus Gallinari, both probably get at least 20 to 25 minutes, and one should push for 30. Last game, it was Herder, but previous game, it was Gallinari. Again, they kind of go with the hot hand. I think, like, if you're going to ask me who I prefer between those two, I would just prefer whoever the lowest owned one is going to be. I think that's Gallinari based on recency bias. We talked about this a lot with these two. Like, whoever has the big game last game is always double the ownership the next slate. And I'll just go with the lower owned one if you're going to make me pick between those two guys. And that's really it. Solomon Hill got a DNP. There's absolutely no way I'm playing Tony Snell. He might play a couple minutes, but yeah, there's no way I'm playing Tony Snell. Last guy I will mention, more large field stuff, is Lou Williams. 12 to 14 minutes is what I'm expecting. He's a decent scorer. but that's really it. I don't think I would go there for single entry stuff or higher stake stuff. Large field tournaments, you make 150 lineups, sure. You can get a little exposure to Lou Williams, who can probably get you 10 to 15 fancy points in that limited run off the bench. All right, so let's move on to Philadelphia. Real quick, if you guys are just coming in, if you could hit that like button, it helps me out a lot. We're at 156 viewers and 30 likes. Try to get to 100 before the end of the show. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And yeah, let's talk about Philadelphia now. So Joel Embiid at 10.5K, I think makes for a really good spot. Now, if you are worried about the knee injury, I get it here because that game he looked injured. He looked like 70% Joel Embiid out there. He didn't have as much spring in his step. Again, he was leaving some shots short. Obviously, he shot 4 of 20. That is not ideal. So I think you can make the argument to fade Embiid. If I'm fading Embiid, then I think you got to play Trae Young, right? Because we'll get to Paul George and Mitchell. I don't really see a way in fading those two guys. So it's like you really kind of pick 3 stars. And if you don't have Embiid, you probably have Trae Young. I guess you could go a little more balanced with guys like Tobias and Bogdan or something like that, but I don't love the build. I kind of like that 3-star roster construction build. So yeah, Embiid is someone I have a lot of interest in. Obviously, there's a little bit more risk involved now, but we'll just look at what happened. Right? He shot 4 of 20. If he shoots a little bit better, maybe he shoots 50% from the field, he goes for like 65 fancy points. So, or if he has a good shooting game, he goes for 70 fancy points. It's like, yeah, I still like Embiid. I just think there's a little bit more risk involved now. If you think Embiid aggravates that knee injury, or you think he's still not even close to 100%, then Tobias Harris is the guy you want to consider, because he is the guy that if Embiid goes down or Embiid is limited, Tobias Harris becomes the number one on offense. So if Embiid plays his 38 minutes, like I don't have a ton of interest in Tobias Harris, but I do think there's a way where, again, Embiid aggravates a knee injury, or he plays maybe limited minutes because of it. And if that does happen, then Tobias Harris would be the guy I would look to. I would first go, so if you really are worried about Embiid, then 1, I play Tobias Harris. 2, I play Dwight Howard at 3-4. We'll get to Dwight Howard, but yeah, if you're really worried about Embiid, you play Dwight and you play Tobias Harris. That's what you do. And I said that, with Harden last night. I was like, hey, if you're worried about Harden, you play KD and the captain, and you play Mike James. Now, Harden actually ended up playing. It was one of those weird situations where he played like the entire game, was more out there for a decoy, so Mike James barely played. But yeah, if you're worried about Embiid, it's Tobias, it's Dwight Howard. Ben Simmons at 7.6. Makes it hard for me to prioritize him. He did have a good game last game. I think he's still viable. Obviously, a guy that can kind of stuff the stat sheet. Almost went for a triple-double the last game. I just think that the 3-star build with Clippers value is really looking optimal today. So I don't know if I really want to mess around with these 7 to 8K guy range or 7K range. I don't love it because it gives you kind of a weird build. Seth Curry at 5K is just kind of there, right? He'll play over 30 minutes. He's very reliant on the scoring. He still has upside, though. So if you go to Seth, I'm not going to talk you off him. Again, it doesn't really stand out, though. With Danny Green out, Korkmaz is definitely someone we can consider for value. Now, he's no longer a plug-and-play here for value because we have, in my opinion, better value with the Clippers, with Kawhi Leonard being out. So Korkmaz probably ranks a little bit behind some of those guys, but I do think he starts and probably plays over 20 minutes. The issue with him, kind of the same issue with Seth Curry, is he's super, super reliant on scoring, and if he's not hitting his shots, he has a pretty low floor. Now, I mentioned Dwight. I think he plays about 12-ish minutes, I think, off the bench if Embiid is healthy. But if Embiid goes down, there's room for Dwight to push for more minutes. And we are, like, Dwight's, I think, in play either way. Like, you can play Dwight here at 3-4. I will say maybe a little bit more constrained because, like I said, I think the Clippers value probably looks a little bit more optimal with, like, 40 minutes and a lot of usage to go around without Kawhi Leonard. But like Dwight Howard can still get you 15 to 20 fancy points in 12 minutes. So like I have some interest in Dwight. And like I said, if you're fading Embiid, then maybe you just go Dwight Howard, Tobias Harris, and hope Embiid is limited, or he aggravates that injury, goes back to the locker room, because we saw it last game. He went back to the locker room, and I was worried, and then he came back and he didn't look like himself. Now the rest of the value, again, they're going to go with the hot hand here with Maxey, Hill, Milton, If I had to pick one more, it would be Shake at the flat min price, 14, 21, and 15 minutes. Now, there's no guarantee for his minutes, right? If he comes out and shoots 0 of 3, they can go to Maxey, they can go to George Hill. So there's a pretty big amount of risk here with Milton. And like I said, Clippers value just looks a lot better. So definitely more of a contrarian option there. Okay, so let's move on to the Clippers and the Jazz. So LA Clippers, again, this is not a contrarian take. Obviously, you want to load up here. I think you guys all know that. Without Kawhi Leonard, going to be a tight rotation. A lot of guys are too cheap without Kawhi out. Load up on the Clippers. 3 to 5 Clippers, I think you want to play 3 at minimum. If you play under 3 Clippers tonight, you are going to lose. Unless, again, the Jazz just absolutely roll the Clippers. Something really weird happens, but if this game stays competitive, you're going to need at least 3 Clippers in your lineup. So, yeah, don't have to debate. Don't have to talk about Paul George much. You guys know what to do here. Clear play, right? The only way he fails is an injury or the Jazz win by 50 and he plays like 25 minutes. I don't see that happening, though. Even in a blowout, like if this game, say, if the Jazz win by 20, I still think Paul George pays off his salary. So, yeah, I really like Paul George. He's a clear play on the slate, in my opinion. Don't think twice. Don't get cute. It's a 2-gamer. I know he's going to be high-owned. There's ways you can get different. Like, you don't fade the best play on the slate to get different. If you're building one lineup, at least. If you're like building a ton of lineups, sure, like anything can happen. You can roll an ankle early. You can fade him in a couple lineups. Again, if I was building 150 lineups, I would play him in every single one. But yeah, so Paul George, clear play. Don't have to spend a lot of time there. The rest of the Clippers look really, really good here. Again, like I said, you want to load up on the Clippers. Reggie Jackson at 5-1. Had an off game last game, but he's going to have to step it up. He's actually been their 3rd best player in the offensive end so far in the playoffs. I think we'll get about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. Yes, he had an off game last game. Not super worried about it. Still have interest in Reggie at that price. And Batum and Marcus Morris, I think, are 2 of the best values on the board. Both should play over 30 minutes. Both are going to have to do more without Kawhi Leonard. So I really like Batum. I really like Marcus Morris. They're going to be popular. It's for good reason. They are 2 of the best plays of the slate. So really, really do like both of them. Now where it gets interesting is the bench. So first, who is going to start for Kawhi? I think there's a couple different ways they can go. So they can continue to go small, and I think it's either maybe Kennard or Mann that pick up a start. My guess is Kennard if they go small. We've seen in the regular season when one of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard is out, it was Kennard that started. Or they can go back to the bigger lineup. They can put Zubac to the 5, move Morris to the 4, Batum to the 3, right? Move everyone down a spot. So I think that is also an option. Either way, I think the 3 guys that benefit the most with the Kawhi Leonard out are Zubac, Kennard, and Terrence Mann. Zubac, so he's been playing about 15 minutes on the bench. I think either way, even if he doesn't start, I think he definitely plays a little bit more here. So if he starts, I have a hard time fading Zubac because I think he plays at least 20 minutes. Even if he comes to the bench, I think he's a really solid value play because he's a good point per minute guy and they just don't have a lot of options. And then Kennard and Mann. So Kennard, yes, he's score independent, but if he starts, I think we probably get at least 20, 25 minutes from him at min price. I think that looks pretty decent. And then Terrence Mann, too, I think probably plays more than 15 minutes, maybe 20 to 25 at the flat min price. Again, obviously usage bump, too. So those 3, I think, get the biggest boost. Now, there is still a way where Ty Lue trolls us, right? And everyone goes to Mann. Everyone goes to Kennard. And sure enough, it's Rajon Rondo that plays 30 minutes. I would not be shocked. He has gotten a DNP every single game so far except game 1. I'm just saying, you cannot trust Ty Lue in this bench rotation. So, yes, what I think happens, I think Zubac, Mann, Kennard get the bump. However, you just never know. And I think there is a way where if you told me Rondo played, again, 25 minutes tonight, I would not be shocked. So in the larger field stuff, so if you want to roll the dice in Rondo, I don't think it's the worst play in the world. Obviously, it's super risky. It's not something I'm going to do in high dollar stuff, not something I'm going to do with my one lineup. But I think there is a way where Rondo actually plays extended minutes tonight. There is, because Ty Lue has shown he messes with the bench rotation. And right, like we saw Rondo closing games early in the playoffs to now getting DNP. We saw Luke Kennard get a DNP basically the entire first round, and now he played 30 minutes game 1. You saw Terrence Mann get some decent run in the first round, and then the first couple games get DNPs. So it's like, you just don't know what Ty Lue's going to do. So there is still risk involved with this bench unit for the Clippers. And then finally, Pat Beverly, I don't know if his role changes. I don't really think he plays much more, but I think 15 to 20 minutes off the bench And, a decent defender, even though I hate Pat Beverly, I think he is playable. So, yeah, there's a lot of guys we can consider here for the Clippers. Also, I think there's still a way Boogie might play too. Like, if they start, the way I take a shot on Boogie Cousins is if Zubac starts. If Zubac starts, I think there's a decent chance Boogie plays. If Zubac doesn't start, then I'm worried Cousins gets the DNP. But like I said, there's a lot of guys you can consider for the Clippers. Mainly what you want to focus on, though, is those guys that we know are going to play big minutes. Morris, Batum, Reggie, and obviously Paul George. But, yeah, I think whoever starts for Kawhi is probably the safest value. So whether it be Kennard, whether it be Mann, whether it be Zubac, whoever starts, I think is the safest value play. And then there's still a good amount of guys we can consider. Even guys who've gotten DNPs recently, I think are worth a look in larger field tournaments. Okay, so let's finish up with the Jazz really quick. Donovan Mitchell, same thing I'll say about Paul George. I don't really see a way to fade him. I think the way you fade Paul George and Donovan Mitchell tonight is you think this game is a massive blowout and you just stack the first game. That's the only way I fade these two guys. Mitchell without Conley is going to play 40 minutes and going to shoot the ball close to 30 times. He is way underpriced at 9K, so love Mitchell. Again, only way he fails, he rolls that ankle, or this game is just the biggest blowout ever. I still don't have a ton of interest in the most overrated player in the NBA, in Rudy Gobert. He's an all-star. He should be able to dominate against this Clippers small ball team, and he has just been looking terrible. 29, 29, 23 fantasy points, 3 of the 4 games so far in this series. Right? He should be able to eat the glass. He should be able to dominate in the offensive end, and he's just not doing it. Now, there's still a way Gobert gets there, right? He has one of those games where he has like 3 blocks, 3 steals. So if we saw in game 2, we had 3 blocks, 2 steals, and he actually had a pretty decent fantasy score game. But yeah, it's like Ben Simmons, right? It's at a price point where it's difficult for me to prioritize him when I want to get to that 3-star construction, right? Because there's a lot of value now with those Clippers guys where I just don't think it makes a ton of sense to get to Gobert. Clarkson is fine for tournaments, I think. So if you're playing it really risky and fading Donovan Mitchell, the way I fade Mitchell is if I'm fading Mitchell, I'm playing both Clarkson and Ingles because the way Mitchell fails is he shoots awful and Clarkson and Ingles take over and both have really good games. But that's not something I would go to if I'm building one lineup. But again, Clarkson I still think is a decent tournament play. Should play about 30 minutes. I think Ingles is a pretty solid option. Probably would rank him behind those Clippers wings because they get a pretty big boost without Kawhi Leonard. But I think we get around 30 minutes from Ingles. He's been a decent scorer. He's been shooting the ball decent, 6-11, 7-9. So I think Ingles is a fair player there in the mid-range. Don't even hate Bojan. Again, he's been playing a lot more minutes. However, like Clarkson, super reliant in the scoring. Both those guys in play for GPPs. Royce O'Neal, I think, is still a safer option. He's been playing massive minutes. Should play about 35 to 40 minutes. No issue if you want to go there. Fine filler play. Don't have interest in Niang. I think favors the flat man price is nothing more than a dart throw. The reason being is I would rather roll the dice in those Clippers value, who I think have upside to play more minutes. So that's kind of where I'm at, guys, for the 2-game slate. I think it's setting up for a little bit more of the stars and scrubs build, and obviously the Clippers value is, I think, where you want to focus. I think, like I said, play at least 3 Clippers. Don't get cute here. And yeah, that's what I got. So let's see. Do we have any more news? Again, I'm assuming Embiid is full go here. Still waiting on it, but yeah, I fully expect him to play. So one more time, guys, last, if you're just coming in, if you could hit that like button. We're at 237 views, 61 likes. I appreciate the support as always, and let's get to some questions. Is 7 guys too many for the late game? So no, it's a 2-game slate. Anything can happen. I will say, like, if I was going to load up on one game, I would much rather have more exposure to the late game. So you can play 7. I think it's definitely contrarian. But yeah, you can play 7 guys from the late game. Embiid eats the fastest. Korkmaz or Mann, Kennard. I'd rather have the Clippers guy. Whoever starts for the Clippers, I think I'd rather have. Yeah, you can play Mann and you can play Mann and Kennard together because I do think both play more minutes here. Ingles or Jackson. See, that one's pretty close for me. I think I'll still give a small lean to Ingles, but I like both. I like both here. Obviously, Reggie gets a pretty big boost without Kawhi Leonard. It's really, really close to those two guys. Embiid and Morris or Gobert and Harris. Embiid and Morris, and for me, it's not close by a wide margin. Dwight or Zubac? Yeah, so if Zubac starts, I'd rather have Zubac, but we're probably not going to get that news until later, so that's a little bit trickier. And Ben Simmons or Mitchell. Gee, feels much. Morris or Batum as last man. So who's cheaper? I think I'll just come down to whoever's cheaper. I think Morris is slightly cheaper, right? 4.5 to 4.6. So it really is a coin flip. Like I mean, personally, I think they're two of the best plays to slate, but I'll go Morris since he's $100 cheaper. Yeah, I think that's definitely smart. Leave a little bit of room for sure. Making one lineup, does Embiid need to be in it? For me, I am playing Embiid, so I'm going to say yes. The way he fails, I think, is the knee. He goes to the locker room early and doesn't return. I don't know if we get another 4 of 20 shooting game from Embiid. Top fade, I mean, it's a 2-gamer. I'll say Tobias Harris and Ben. I'll say Tobias. The guys in the 7K: Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Rudy Gobert. That range of players, I don't have a ton of interest in. Rudy going for 32. 32, and that's probably a good game for Rudy, yeah. Chalk most likely to bust. Yeah, it's that 7 to 8K range. I don't think they're going to be super popular, but Simmons, Gobert, Tobias Harris, I don't have a ton of interest in those guys. It's Kennard. It's Kennard because I think he definitely has the opportunity to play more minutes. Lou Williams is locked into like 10 to 15 minutes. Kennard could start and play 30 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked. Embiid, Korkmaz, Capella, and Gobert. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Embiid, Korkmaz. Yeah, I'm not saying you have to fade Rudy Gobert. He's close enough in price to Paul George and Donovan Mitchell, right? Close enough in price there that I am not prioritizing him. I don't have an issue with Ben Simmons. I think he's a little bit more contrarian on the slate, but he had a big game last game, and like if Embiid goes down early, Tobias and Ben Simmons are taking over. So like if you're fading, like I said, if you're fading Embiid, you're probably playing Tobias and or Ben Simmons and then Dwight Howard. Dwight Mann, Reggie or Curry and Zubac. I think I'd go the Mann Reggie route. Mitchell, Paul George, Batum, Morris, Zubac, Mann, Ingles, and Embiid. I think it looks really solid. Going Reggie, Ben Simmons, Kennard, Mitchell, Bogdanovich, Batum, Collins, Tobias. Again, it's a little bit contrarian. I don't love the Capella play, but I think it'll make your lineup different. Yeah, I mean that's the way you fade Embiid, right? And I do think there's more risk with Embiid. I told you guys where I'm going. Like I'm taking the shot on him. However, I do think he's a lot more risky in this slate. So there is a way to fade Embiid, and the way is you think he goes to the locker room early, or you think he aggravates an injury. All right, so you got Mitchell, Kennard, Batum, Morris, Embiid, PG, Gallo, and Reggie. I think it looks really good. You have more exposure to the second game. I think that is correct. You have a lot of Clippers exposure with the value. I think that is correct. I like the stars. You got Embiid, Mitchell, Paul George. Everything looks really good there. I like it a lot, Tori. And thank you for the super chat. Again, obviously not necessary. I always say that, but thank you. It really does mean a lot. Trey and Dwight are Embiid and Mann. Yeah, it's Embiid and Mann for me. John Collins and Mann are Herter and Zubac. I'd rather the first one. Hopefully the field really fades Embiid. Again, I told you guys what I'm doing. Like I'm playing Embiid. The way he fails is the locker room. That's the way Embiid fails. I think Gobert fails in the Harrison Barnes, Andrew Wiggins camp for DK. Oh yeah, I mean I hate Rudy Gobert. I never play him in the regular season. I played him once in the postseason so far, and it went awful. He just stood in the corner, didn't do much. High risk, high reward with Embiid. Yeah, there's more risk involved for sure. There's more risk involved with Embiid. Ingles, Zubac, or Batum, and Gallinari. So it's tough because I don't know the Clippers starting lineup. So let's just say this. If Zubac starts, I'd rather have the first one. If Zubac comes off the bench, I think I'd rather have Batum, Gallo. So the starting lineup does matter because Zubac starting, I think, gives me more confidence with his minutes. When playing 2 lineups, should I get to 0, 50, or 100%? I think I would go 1 with, 1 without because I think there's a little bit more risk with Embiid today. So, yeah, I think that's what I would do if I was building 2. Ben Simmons, technically point guard, and Trey without the scoring. Cheaper price, think about it. Reggie Jackson, Kennard, or Ingles and Mann? Yeah, see, Reggie and Ingles is really close for me. And then Mann versus Kennard comes down to who starts I prefer. So I guess my answer would be whoever starts between Kennard and Mann, I would prefer that option because I think Reggie and Ingles is really, really close. Obviously, Ingles gets the boost without Conley, but Reggie gets the boost without Kawhi. Yeah, it's those two. It's really close. And Kennard versus Mann, it comes down to whoever starts. You think smarter to get different with the first or second game, thinking Milton or Maxey could work? I mean, that's one way to make your lineup different, right? Everyone's going to focus on the Clippers' value, as I think they should. But there's a way that game just turns into a massive blowout or something really weird happens. And I could see a way where Shake Milton is in the winning lineup tonight. He comes out the bench and plays really well and plays like 20 minutes. So I think you can roll the dice at Milton. It will make your lineup different. It's not something I'm looking to do, but on a 2-gamer, again, if someone asks me, like, how do you get different? You play one of those Clippers value guys and hope they have a really good game. Yeah, I think you can definitely play Kennard and Mann together. The only concern I said, which I brought it up early, is does Ty Lue troll us here? Everyone thinks it's going to be Kennard and Mann that get the biggest bump, and then we're just going to see Rondo play 30 minutes. Right? That's just in the back of my mind. I know Rondo's gotten a DNP every single game except for game 1, but I just think that is possible. I think there's a way that does happen, and obviously the whole DFS community is going to be tilted if it does. But yeah, like I said, if you're building a ton of lineups, I don't hate taking a shot at Rondo 1 or 2 and just hope he's back in the rotation because no one's going to play him. 4.3K utility, does it make sense to go to Zubac over Gallinari? I mean, so point per dollar, Zubac. If I knew Zubac was starting, I would rather have point per dollar Zubac over Gallinari. Straight up right now, it's Gallinari because we don't know the starters. If you're asking me, like, if I knew Zubac was starting, would I eat the salary and play Zubac over Gallo? I think it's close. I think I would still slightly prefer Gallinari. But yeah, if Zubac starts, I think he looks a little bit better point per dollar since he's at 3.5 as opposed to what Gallo's at 4.3. Bogdan for me over Capella. Yeah, FanDuel's tough. Shooting guard is loaded. Yeah, I bet guard's pretty loaded today. All right, guys, couple minutes left. Yeah, it's Mann right now because we know, like, I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in the rotation. That's true. Gobert did shut down NBA. Yeah, Korkmaz or Kennard. So I will just say, whoever starts for the Clippers, I think I prefer over Korkmaz. However, Korkmaz would be the value play I feel the best about for the 76ers, assuming he starts. Dwight and O'Neal or Reggie, Jackson and Kennard. Reggie and Kennard by a pretty wide margin there for me. Yeah, again, Reggie versus Ingles. So I think Reggie's going to be more popular, but I still like Ingles. Taking ownership in consideration, I think I'll give the edge to Ingles. I think he'll come in a little bit lower ownership. I think both are good plays, though. I do. I think both play around 30 minutes. Both, obviously Ingles, we haven't seen Conley, but he gets a bump without Conley. He'll play a lot at the point. And then Reggie, might have to be the number 2 on offense here without Kawhi Leonard. Dwight or Zubac, if he starts, it would be Zubac. Yeah. Making 3 lineups. Thoughts on one Cousins line? Depends what stakes you're playing. If it's high stakes, I wouldn't do it. Low stakes, you can roll the dice. If it's like a $10 entry, sure, it's pretty risky. I wouldn't do it in, let's just say a $100 entry. I wouldn't do it. But I think the way Boogie plays is if Zubac starts, because then I think they go big, and then I think Boogie might play some of the backup 5. Embiid and Dwight together, I will say it will make that's another way, it will make your lineup different. I could see it working out, right? Embiid, smashes in 35 minutes, and Dwight Howard's been a good point per minute guy and get like 20 in limited time. It can work. I mean, if you're building one lineup, I wouldn't do it, but that is one way to get different. I feel Reggie will do more of the peripherals. Yeah, I think, again, Reggie should handle the ball more. He should have to shoot the ball more. Is Kennard fine off the bench? A little bit riskier off the bench because what I said of, Ty Lue rotations have been a little bit inconsistent. Again, whoever starts the Clippers is the safest way to go for value. All right, guys. So, safe salary for the Clippers lineup. I think so. I think you want to leave some room. Give yourself some flexibility there. Rolling the dice and Corona boy, one lineup. Again, I'm not saying to fade Gobert. He's just kind of in that category of like, I don't know if I can do it on this slate. Embiid is in. Okay, so we'll finish off with that. Yeah, Joel Embiid playing. Again, one more time, I want to reiterate where I am. I am playing Joel Embiid. I do think, though, there's more risk involved. Korkmaz is starting too. So Korkmaz is the value play you can feel the best about for the Clippers. And Embiid, there's more risk involved based on what I saw the last game. I will say if he plays 38 minutes, I don't think we get another 4 of 20 shooting game from Embiid. And he's still shooting that bad, 1 for 50 fantasy points. So the way you fade, I think, is the injury. That the knee, you think he plays limited minutes. That's the way you fade. Other than that, I would be very scared of fading Joel Embiid on this 2-gamer. So that's all I got, guys. I appreciate you coming to check out the live stream. Thank you, Tori, for the super chat again. We hit 85 likes, got close to 100. I appreciate everyone that came in, liked the live stream, and I'll be back tomorrow, guys. We got one game to talk about. Hoping the Bucks can pull that one off. That would be nice. And yeah, good luck. Enjoy these 2 games. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow.